Okay, my canvas is base coated with 2 coats of bleach sand with 2-inch dampened foam roller. Okay, so now on our palette, I was trying to figure out what colors I wanted to use here. And I've got my bleach sand, and then I've got some media fluid acrylics. I've got dioxazine purple, yellow green light, and cobalt teal hue. So you could go, if you don't have the media paint, you could go with like a turquoise blue. You could still keep the dioxazine purple in the regular paint. And then this color is probably more like a festive green, maybe. So I'm not sure I'm going to use any of that green, but we'll see. So I want to get a little bit of water in my brush and pull out some of my bleached sand and kind of dampen this on here. You want to work fairly quickly, and that's why I chose a smaller canvas here. So we're just going to work in a X motion here, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of the teal, or the cobalt teal hue, or if you're using regular paint, yours would be turquoise. And we're just going to lay down some X's and gently blend that in there. We want to see those colors in there. You're getting a lot of glare, so you're not seeing as much as I'm seeing. This is going to be very subtle in the background. We're doing a soft canvas here. So I'm just going to put this blue in about three different places and gently blend that in. I'm going to take my paper towel and wipe off the excess blue out of it. I'm going to load back up with my bleach sand, and now I'm going to dip into my purple, and we will blend some purple in here. Little X's, just back and forth. You can go into that blue and blend it into the blue. We want just a soft background. A little bit more. And now I think I might add just a little bit of that green in here, not a whole lot. So I'm going to wipe my brush off. I don't want to get it wet. And I'm going to load up with some bleach sand. I'm going to tip into my bright green, get a little bit of that, and I probably need a little bit more bright green. We'll work some of that in here. Very soft colors. Pick up a little bit more, and put some down here. You get to be creative with your canvas. So wherever you think a color needs to be, then go ahead. And you can come back and build as many layers on your background as you like. I think more layers is always better, but you don't want your background to get super dark. So we've got a very soft background. I'm going to smooth it out a little bit here. I just want it a little bit smoother, not so many brush strokes in it. So little X's. Let's put some color down here. Need a little bit of color in here. There we go. Little X's, gently blended. Gentle, gentle. And then you can go on your edges, and since it's a wrapped canvas, you want to work it around your edges, and you just get that nice. So I'm going to load up a little bit of buttermilk. I think I'll pick the blue for up here. And we can just quickly do the edge. We don't have to be, you know, as Xy up here. You can be more, ooh, that's a lot of that green. So I might bring a little bit over onto the top because that's really bright on that edge. Wipe my brush off. Pick up some more of the blue. Kind of go around this edge. And just do all of your edges. Should be a fairly quick process to do your edges because there's not a whole lot there, and we're just giving it some tint of color. So we just don't want it to be a plain edge. A little more buttermilk because I got lots of little purple there. Okay, I'm going to wipe that out of my brush so it doesn't get too overpowering there. And gently blend it out. Okay, I think that looks very soft, very pretty. We're going to let it dry and see if we want to come back and deepen any of our color. Okay, my background is dry. Now, if you're using the media paints, I have to tell you, you got to use just the tiniest amount of paint ever, because this paint is so pigmented that when it dries, the colors really pop out. I mean, when it's wet, it didn't look this dark, but as it dried, it looks just right. And so I didn't go back and apply a second coat on here. And you can see I squirted out way too much paint on my palette because you just need a drop of this stuff. Alright, I want to stencil on the back of my project here, or on the front of my project here. And I've got this kind of stamped stencil that I like. I believe, I will double check, but I'm pretty sure this came from creativeartslifestyle.com. So I want to put a few fun little things in the background. So I am going to get my makeup sponge here. And I have some burnt umber on my palette. So I'm going to try and pick it up without any other paint, a little bit on my sponge and tap it onto my palette. I'll get my regular palette paper out here in a minute. Tap it onto my palette because makeup sponges are not very absorbent. So we don't want to put tons of paint on here. You want to go a little bit at a time. And I kind of want these subtle in the background anyway. So I'm just going to stamp these. We're going to do a little bit more aging stuff on here. So if you get your stencil, or you can stamp on here if you don't want to stencil, you'd rather stamp, you can do that. We're going to do a little bit of an aging effect, I think, on top of this. I'm not 100% sure, but that's kind of where my plan is going. So if you miss a part of the stencil, no big deal. That'll make it look more aged and fun. This is kind of made to look a little aged anyway, this stencil. So just whatever stencil you have that you like for the background, just go with that. Or you can not stencil at all. Completely your choice. Alright, so I want to put this postage stamp over here, so I'm going to stamp that on. And I'm just using burnt umber. And I know when I lift this up, you're going to go, oh my gosh, that is so dark. Why in the world would she use that color? Well, I'm planning on really putting an aged effect on here. So, and I like it just like that too, so that's gorgeous. So over here on this side, I'm going to put this and this on here. Now, if you're, let me wide angle out a little bit. If you're the kind of person who likes their words to be straight, in a straight line, then put yours in a straight line. I'm going to kind of tilt mine a little bit. I want to do this, this, and this on here. So, pick up a little bit of burnt umber. And I'm going to start right here on this one. Holding my stencil the best I can here without it bouncing all over this canvas. Sometimes it's a little tricky on canvases because canvases can be a little bouncy. The media line has been out for about a year now. So if you haven't had an opportunity to even try one of the colors, I just highly recommend you trying at least one color. You're going to love them. I just know it. Do these little lines, wavy lines over here. I just pick up a little bit of paint at a time and work it on my sponge there. Do not get a lot of paint. Less is best. And we're not going for perfection here, so we want kind of a rustic old background. That looks great. I love it. I might put a little piece of this stamp over here on this edge. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. I like how that turned out. So now your stencils. Anytime I use a stencil in my video, I like to give the information on the best way to clean it. So I will tell you how I do it, and I've never had a problem with any of my stencils. So I take it to my sink when I'm done. Even if your paint is dried on here and you've left it for a few hours, a few weeks. I've had a couple that I didn't clean off for a couple of years. So you take it to your sink, and with a very soft bristled toothbrush, you need a really soft one so you don't damage your stencil, squirt hand sanitizer all over your stencil, okay? And then take your toothbrush, I'll move this canvas out. Take your toothbrush and you're going to gently, in a circular, you can do it right here on your table if you've got one of those mats that you can clean up easy. You can do it, here I'll just do it on I'll just squirt some on here. So you would squirt it at your sink. I like to do it in the sink so I can just rinse it off quickly. You just put it on there. You can let it set for about, I don't know, 15 seconds, 20 seconds. It doesn't take very long for the alcohol to start dissolving the paint on there. And then just in a circular motion, you just work that around very gently. And it loosened all of that paint up, so it is ready to come off. Lay this on top of this. Maybe. It's kind of a yucky paper towel there. And then I'll take this one and show you how I can just clean it off. I would clean it off with water, and then if it doesn't get it all, then you just go back with your brush, your toothbrush, and you do it again. But you need to be gentle. Don't be rough with your stencils at all. Be gentle and it will all come off right at your sink. So that's how I clean my stencils. Okay, I'm going to throw another great product at you. This is a new product. I probably shouldn't take the lid off here. This is Vintage Effect Wash. And this is the white. It comes in several colors. This I am going to put on top. I'm going to take I might slightly, well, I'll wait and see. I haven't used it yet. This will be my first time. I may completely not like what it's going to do to this, but we shall see. So when you apply this, this is a permanent finish, just like paint would be. So I'm going to thin it down just a scooch with some water. Make it more milky. And then I'm going to brush it across the top. Going to vintage this baby out. Use my clean water to thin this down because I don't want okay, so I'm going to take it and wipe some of it back, and we're going to do this all the way across. So probably would have been better if I had my palette paper out here so I could just put a little bit on the paper with some water and have it thinned down. So I've thinned it down with a little bit of water. I'm not going to worry so much about the sides. Take my paper towel and I'm going to gently wipe it back. I don't want to wipe it all off, I just kind of want to wipe it back. And you can apply a couple coats on here if, you know, when you're wiping it back you wipe off too much. I really feel like I need a little bit more on this side. Need a bit more. Deco Art has come out with some really great products this year. Okay, so we've kind of washed it all back, which I love. So then we're going to let it dry. This is an optional step. If you do not want to do this, then don't do it. Got a little bit of brush strokes in mine that I don't really like, so I think if I ever do it again I'm going to apply it with a sponge so I can not have those strokes in there. So I'm going to get mine dry and see if I want to apply a second coat on here. And if I apply a second coat, I'm going to go this way this time. And I'm going to apply it with a dampened artist sponge. Second coat. So if I decide to do a second coat, I'll come back on camera and show you how I do it. Okay, I am going to apply a second coat on here just because I want a little bit smoother lines on here. So I'm just going to apply a quick coat with an artist sponge. I can rub it in there really good. And then I'll take the damp side. Well, maybe not. Put that back on there. I'll take my paper towel and wipe across and remove. Okay, that looks so much better. I like that. So it really is up to you if you want one or two coats on your project. Then you can be the judge there. Now I want to splatter a little bit of burnt umber on here. Let me get this sponge cleaned out. Okay, I'm going to splatter some on here. Now, you can do two ways. You can thin down this type of brush and use it by tapping burnt umber, or you can use a toothbrush by putting some on there and going like this. It clearly is a personal preference. Don't feel like you have to do it one way or the other. So I'm going to thin this down a little bit. I want to tap some off to see. Need a little bit more water in there. There we go. And we're just going to put some of this. I'm not normally a spatterer, so that's a big step for me, spattering. I'm going to concentrate a little bit more around my stamps and stuff. And my letters. Okay. I'm going to wash that brush out really good. I'm going to get a little bit of my vintage effects and put a little bit of that out on my palette here. Again with some water. I want to make sure I use my clean water for this. And let's see how it's going to come off. And we will apply some of this on here. You could use your bleach sand that you used as your base coat. What a fun background. Oh my gosh, gorgeous. Loving it. Loving it, loving it, loving it. Okay, I think that's all I'm going to do to the background. So I'm going to get that completely dry so I can get my pattern put on here. Okay, I've just kind of got a rough outline of where my flower is going to go and kind of where my leaves are going to go. You probably can't see any of it. I don't want it too dark because I am wanting all of this to stay pretty light. So we've got a leaf over here, and then this is mostly my flower, and then we've got a stem coming off down here. So we are going to start laying in some color for a hydrangea. Now, I've never done hydrangeas, so this could be a complete and utter disaster. I am going to use a 6 filbert brush. This is a Black Dynasty brush. This will be my first time using it. I think I'm going to love it because I just kind of gave it a little test run here and I was quite happy with it. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of lavender, and I'm going to mix in a little bit of my bleach sand in there, our base color, and I'm just going to start kind of tapping in my shape here. And I'm adding a little bit of water to my paint. This is just the undercoating here. So I think I want the lighter side of my hydrangea to be up around in here, maybe coming down to the center a little bit. So I'm going to go into a little bit of wisteria with my lavender and lay down a little bit lighter color in here. Now remember, decorative painting is a layering process. You cannot get to that beautiful painting that you want by trying to get there all at once. It just will not work. So you've got to lay in your foundation and go from there. A little bit too much water there on my brush. So we're getting all this in here. I think I'll pick up a little bit of olive green now. I'm going to just spritz my palette with some water so I can pick up water from my palette instead of going to the water basin. I'm going to take a little bit of my green. I have, what color do I have? Hauser Light Green. Ooh, I got that too muddy. I'm going to take Hauser Light Green and a little bit of the lavender and lay some color in here. And pick up a little bit of wisteria and mix that in there. I think I'm going to go straight Hauser Green. That's a little bit too dark for me, and I want to keep everything a little bit on the lighter, more lighter side. Maybe mix some bleach sand in with it. That probably will tone it down the way that I want it. So I just pick up a little bit and kind of blend it in there until I'm happy with it. And I'm just going to kind of keep this color more out on this outer edge. Go back into my lavender. This is just a layering process. Now, our next layer that we put on, we want to kind of start sort of shaping some, petals in here. And this is just with lavender. And then a little bit of wisteria on this side. So you're kind of going to overlap. I think hydrangea petals are 4 petals. So you're just going to keep picking up and layering. And as you build each layer, you will start forming more and more of a distinct flower on here. Or petals, I guess I should say. So you would lay 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe a little bit of light on here. You can put a little bit more of the, I'm going to wash my brush out. You could put a little bit more of the green with the bleach sand, not too much. So it really is just dabs of layering until you get, I think the top 2 layers, when we do those are the layers that will have more detail in them. Alright, I'm going to start forming a little bit more of a petal here. So you can do it with 4 or 3 strokes. You can overlap. I'm going to pick up a little bit of burnt umber. Change the value of some of these a little bit. And you'll just keep picking up and laying in. You'll do 2 layers of this. And I want my petals to not be quite as big as what I started with there, so I'm going to go a little bit more on the side of my brush. Instead of laying it flat, I'm laying it on its side. And it's okay if you have like a variegated one. That makes a really nice petal. I don't want globs of paint on here, so you don't have to completely cover up everything underneath. So like I said, this is the first hydrangea I've ever painted, so if you have a technique that you like, I'm going to add a little bit of bleach sand in. A lot of paint on my brush, so I'm going to clean that off. Ooh, still a lot of paint. I could probably go down to a smaller filbert. That would probably be helpful. Remember, you want your petals to overlap. Don't have them just going one direction either. Move your piece around. We're starting to form a little bit of a hydrangea here, I think. So the colors that you're picking up right now is still just the lavender, the wisteria, the bleach sand. You can add in a little bit of burnt umber or green in there. Those are all the colors we've used within this project so far. Just going to put a few green ones in there. Kind of come out away from it. You don't have to confine it. Okay, so our next layer, we definitely want to be more in control of our shape of petals. So I'm going to see if I've got a little bit smaller filbert here in a minute. Get the excess paint out of my brush here. It's just an overlapping of colors here. And that's how you're going to get your depth. I'm literally just tapping. Tap, tap, tapping. Okay, I think that is pretty good for that layer. So our next layer, we definitely want to get more petal form. Okay, I've gotten out 4 filbert now. This is also a Dynasty brush. It's a different number here. I'll be sure and have that listed in my packet. So I've put out a little bit of the dioxazine purple media paint. If you don't have this, you can just use regular dioxazine purple. And I'm just going to mix a little bit of that with my lavender. I want to create some really nice petals on top here. So just stroke it on. You're just laying in some nice petals, and every now and then just pick up straight lavender. I'm going to keep this down here on the dark edge. There we go. Now we're getting some nice petals on here. Just layer them up. I'm going to start going into a little bit of wisteria. I'm mixing it with my lavender. So you can start mixing some with some bleach sand. A little bit more color in there. Have to get some fresh wisteria out, I think. A little bit darker down here. Just layer them up. A bit more of that dioxazine purple in here. Got a little bit of white now. So 1, 2, 3, 4 petals. 1, 2, 3, 4 petals. 1, 2, 3, 4 petals. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is white, a little bit of wisteria. It's just those 4 little quick strokes, bringing them all together in the center there. Oops. Picked up their own color there. We're looking like a hydrangea now. I'll probably put a couple of strokes of green in here. So you can choose where your light source is coming from, actually. It doesn't have to be exactly like mine. Pick up a little bit more white here. I like the variegated ones. Okay, so we've got some nice petals on there, I think. I think we'll add a few more of the just white petals on here. So I'm going to add just a few more of the snow white petals. I'll get the water out of my brush here because I want to use just paint, no water. And I'm going to try and keep these kind of more up here. Because this is our lightest area up here. I think that looks pretty good there. We want to dot the centers now. I want to dot them with a little bit of cad yellow, I think. So I'm going to give me a little liner brush. I think actually before I do that, I want to put a little bit of green in there. I'm going to go with some avocado this time. Maybe mix a little bit of purple with it, kind of tone it down. So just a few little strokes of green in there. Alright, let's dot our centers now. So you just pick wherever you think a flower is. And we're going to put some yellow in there. And that's not showing up so well. So let's go with the avocado. Just put them wherever you want a flower to be. And this will push some of those more forward now. Let's see, I'm going to put one back in there. And this too will give more illusion of more flowers. So you be the master of your, ooh, that was a big one, of your flowers. You get to choose how many is in there. Okay, so we're going to let that completely dry before we do the next step on there. Okay, let's create our stem on our hydrangea. So we're going to take our avocado and our burnt umber and just create a kind of dirty green. And we want to bring our stem from up there more paint and water in my brush here because I'm not going anywhere fast. Okay, I'm going to paint this in, then I'm going to come back and add a little couple of petals there. Kind of cover a little bit of that up. While the paint is wet, I'm going to get some Hauser medium green, or Hauser light green. I'll mix that with a little bit of white and lighten it up. And streak that in there. Just a little bit. And let me add a quick little petal or two on here over that. Put a little dot there. And their centers. Alright, looking pretty good here. So that's basically all we're going to do to our stem. You could go back if you wanted and streak a little bit of burnt umber in it. So it's basically just a little mix of burnt umber and avocado. To base it in, you streak it through with a little bit of Hauser light green, and then a little bit of Hauser light green with white, and then a little bit of burnt umber just on the bottom side. Very easy, very quick stem. We could fatten it up down here if we wanted. It could be a little bit fatter down here. I have way too much water in my brush here. I didn't want it to quite be that fat. So make it a little more substantial of a stem. And then put a little highlight back on it. And a little bit of just burnt umber on this side. Alright, that looks pretty good. I like that. Alright, let's work on some leaves. So I've drawn in a big one here, kind of a medium-sized one there, a small one there, and then two really big ones here. You know, this one's kind of tucked in. I might not make it quite that long, and then this big one coming off of it, and I might not make it quite that big. So we're going to base them in with some avocado very loosely. Let me get some fresh paint out here. I'm going to thin it down a little bit. And I got some burnt umber in my brush, so let me clean that out. I really just want the avocado. So we're just going to kind of place these where we want them to go. So I've got one that I want to go right here. So it's going to be around that. Yeah, I'm just loosely putting it in there. And then I've got this one here. And I don't think I'm going to make it quite as big as I drew it there, so I'll erase that part of the line. I just want to come right up to my flowers there. Then I've got this great big one right here. So I'm laying in the foundation here. I'm just kind of blocking in some color, and then this one I made it really big. So I might make that a little bit smaller than what I drew it there. Just block it in. And then we've got this one. I'm going to bring it kind of down like that. Give it a little bit more character going on here. Okay, so we want to get these dry. We've kind of just blocked in where they're going. So we're going to get them dry and then we're going to work on them. Okay, so while they're drying, I feel like my hydrangeas are too tight. So I'm just going to take a round brush and kind of loosely put some kind of tap them in around. Do a little bit more purple there. Maybe just a little bit of green in there. Water in my brush would be good. I'm just doing this with a round brush, so don't, if you don't want to do this to yours, then don't do it. I feel like it was too confined. It needed some loosey-goosey stuff coming out from around it. Kind of want them a little bit more washy. Paint is all dried up here. I'm trying to paint with paint that won't paint. You know, we just never want to take the time to pour out more paint. Loosey-goosey, that's what I want to be. Okay, well, I think that's going to make me a little happier. Maybe just a couple over here. This still looks a little too confined. Looking good. Just some little dibby dabs. Dibby dabs. That's how we do that. Okay. That looks pretty good. Alright, back to our leaves here. So with this leaf, let me get my pencil and see if it will write on here. I think before I go any further, because I don't want to get paint on areas that I don't want the lines to stay in my project. So I'm going to erase my pencil lines that I drew in here. Brush it away from your paint. Now, I had no idea what I was doing when I started this. I just kind of drew a shape on here to see where I was going. And this is where it went. So, I think it's looking pretty good. I hope you're liking it. I think I want this petal, maybe. Okay. In my instructions, I'm going to say to mix a little bit of avocado and Hauser Light Green. And, you know, just kind of rough the flowers in. Just, you know, put a thin coat on here. Because I painted them with the avocado first and added Hauser Light Green. It's kind of a mix. Because it's not a straight color of either one. So now we're going to create our centers. And we're just going to float down the center with some avocado. And you can use whatever brush you like to use for floating. I'm just going to keep with this flat brush that I've been using here. And we're going to go down each side of our center vein. So I'm going to do one side of each and then come back and do the other side. Lay your brush flat, soft pressure. We're could make that leaf a turned leaf very easily. Okay, there's one side. We're going to want to widen that here in a minute. So we're going to keep a separation between them. Go back over this side a little bit. Lay your brush flat. Work that brush, you know. That brush will do what you want it to do. Don't let it be in charge of you. You be in charge of it. Oops. Let's go to this side here. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit of this back here. I think I might go ahead and make that a turned leaf, so when I add my highlighting on there, I'll make it turned more. I want this to come out farther on here, so I'm going to put more paint on my brush and kind of bring it out into the leaf a little bit. I just don't want the leaf to be solid, but we need a little bit of the darker color in the leaf, so when we put our veins in here, we can see them. So just kind of walk a little bit of that out and darken a little bit farther on each side of the vein. Just about covered that vein up. You just only want the paint on the one edge there. You take that water edge and soften it out and smooth it out. Have a little bit of water in your brush, especially if you're painting on a canvas. The paint wants to catch and drag on a canvas, so you want to keep it moving. So we're going to make this the shaded edge here around that. And we'll come back and highlight and make that leaf look a little more turned. I have to do a little more tweaking to it, I think. Okay, kind of pull that paint out there. Okay, so that's a good initial start right there. Alright, let's darken a little bit. We want to put a little bit of shading back here at the back of the leaf. And down next to the center with some Hauser dark green here. So you're just going to deepen. Because I think hydrangea leaves are pretty dark. This one we need dark back there, along this bottom edge, and right through here. And we'll highlight here in a second to really make that look folded. I know right now you're thinking that's going to look like a folded leaf. That looks awful. Trust me. Come on, have a little faith. A little dark there. Alright, looking good. I'm going to put a little bit of this back here. I'm going to grab my mop brush. Kind of mop that. Soften it down in there. And the same here. We're going to want a little bit of this darker green kind of back there. And let's mop that because that's really dark. So I'm going to mop right in the paint because I want to remove some of it. And we got one more over here. Put some of this dark at the base. Pull it up, and we'll have a little bit more dark on this side and on this side. And let's see, the same with this one. I think we'll put a little bit more dark on this edge. And that wasn't quite dry, so I should have waited. And then this one here, I think I'll also make a darker edge. Let me try this. So I'll put a little bit more along this edge here. Okay, let's add some highlights on here now. Okay, we are going to highlight with a mix, an equal mix. So you just pick up each color on the corner of your brush of Hauser Light Green and Snow White to create a light green. And we'll just highlight along this edge here. It's really not going to be quite bright enough for me, so I might have to get some olive green. Or better yet, that might be too bright. Yeah, I'll have to get some olive green, I think, and wash over this edge, because that is just a little bit too muted. Hard line there. Don't like it. Take it off. Mop it. Soften it down there. So I'll continue with this color since I started with it, but we're going to get some olive green here in a second, because I don't like this color at all. But I want my piece to look, you know, cohesive here. So this is how we're going to create a turned edge here, by highlighting that edge and highlighting out there. Okay. Let me get to my olive green. So olive green is my go-to green for highlighting on leaves. I just love it. So I'm going to go over what I just did. I'm going to dry my brush off, it's all wet. Okay, you don't need very much. Just go along that outer edge there. Brighten that up along this edge and this edge. So there we've got our turn leaf, and that wasn't very hard at all, was it? Okay, that's looking pretty good. Let's get our liner brush now. And we're going to thin down some olive green and create our center vein. come off of this with some veins. Okay, you've got to have it thinned down, inky consistency. Stay up on the tippy toe, brush straight up and down. Down the center. I probably should have got my 10-0 liner. It's a little bit longer bristles, will hold a little bit more paint. We're almost done. Try not to do what I did right there and go over your center vein, because then you get all kinds of issues. Doesn't look right, you won't be happy. Okay, let's go up here and do this one. This one will have our okay, and then to connect them, we're going to use the how's our dark green, avocado. Mix those two together, make it inky consistency, just a color that you like, because we've got this color all over on our palette. And we are going to come from our stem and into the flower, the leaf, a little bit into this one. We're going to curve down, and then this one's going to come from here. Smooth that out. We don't want any hard starts and stops on our stem there. And then these won't have any. So, and we can dip a little bit of olive green and add a little highlight on there. Okay, I think that is going to finish out this project. Let's zoom out here so we can look at it. Wide angle. I think it turned out pretty darn good for my first hydrangea, not having any idea how to paint one, but I planted some in my yard last year and I had my first hydrangeas, so I was excited about that. I think mine are a pink color, but I thought this turned out fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. I really hope that you enjoyed painting it and all my mess here. Great, great fun project. Look at that. That turned out gorgeous. Okay. Thank you so much for painting with me. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you guys on the next one.